Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tate,
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Alan Singer.
educator, historian, Dr. Alan Singer, resident expert on Media Watch. Glad you're here, Alan. Lots to get to. Quick tip of the hat. Rest in peace, Clive Davis, major music mogul. I guess that's the correct term for Clive Davis, major music mogul. Resurrected numerous careers, passed in back end of June, but the funeral was held a couple of days ago. And doing, yeah, I think he passed on the 22nd of June. That's a fitting headline. Hit-making titan of the music industry dies at 94. And uh, definitely the godfather of Whitney Houston's phenomenal career, but resurrected people like Santana, Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick when their original labels decided that they could no longer deliver. Uh, I remember he actually helped resurrect Eddie Kendricks's career when Motown decided they didn't want to back Eddie as a single artist. That's when I did my one and only interview up close with Clive Davis to talk about Eddie. And what I remember about that interview was Clive Davis said to me, most people in this business will say the best answer that will be correct most of the time, and they're happy to do it. And that one word answer is no. Whatever crosses their desk, no. He said, I try to find the kind of magic in people or in situations that make me want to say yes. He says it's easy to say no, a lot harder to say yes, but yes is where the best gamble always turns out to be. That I remembered from that Clive Davis interview. And yeah, he was a yes man for a lot of careers. So yeah, I'm sorry he passed. And there were a lot of tributes from Bruce Springsteen, Alicia Keys. Who else was on that roster? Jennifer Hudson, you name it. The who,
Barry Manilow.
yep, they were all there singing Clive Davis's praises. And so, yeah, we could say a lot more about him, but we also need to talk about another interesting icon of the music industry who passed just a couple days ago, Victor Willis, whose name does not ring a bell for most people because they only remember him as the police helmet wearing lead singer of the Village People. That's who Victor Willis became famous as. And of course, YMCA has become its own new controversial anthem because Victor, Alan, what did Victor and his manager at the time do when you know who did whatever they did?
Well, Trump was playing their music at his rallies. So first they issued a notice that he had to stop. But the problem was that the music itself was owned by a company, BMI, that gave him permission. And then Victor, after Trump was elected a second time, decided, what the hell, let me cash in on this, because they were making a lot of money because the song had become popular again. He actually appeared at a rally at the second Trump inaugural.
Okay.
Originally, he was threatening to sue. His wife at the time was a lawyer.
Okay. Well, yeah. Victor decided, hell, if Trump's going to make money, I might as well make money too. And I think he gave an interview to Rolling Stone or a couple of other magazines later. And basically he said, look, our music is for everybody. We don't care what your politics are. As long as you enjoy our music, you're one of us. So,
By the way, Trump made a lot more money. In 2025, Trump made $2.5 billion, most of it by self-promoting using the presidency.
yeah, the emoluments clause got kicked out the door, down the tube, down the drain when this SCOTUS crazy Supreme Court gave him his get out of jail card and made it much harder for us to function as a democracy. They keep giving him more autocratic cards in his playbook. This imperial presidency, that being our segue, we might as well segue.
Yeah.
No, we won't go to Supreme Court yet. Let's go to Victor in his threats to sue, also threatened to sue the media when they, quote, said the village people were basically a gay group catering to a gay audience. And Victor didn't consider himself gay. I think he was married 3 times, which doesn't prove anything, but he was married 3 times to 3 different women. So he threatened to sue the media about that implication of the group being gay. But whether they were or not, doesn't matter. They made great music, so who cares? But threatening to sue seems to be big in America, always has been. It's a litigious society. I think that's the phrase.
Yeah.
But
Litigious
Alan,
indeed.
talk to us about the litigiousness of this current administration, because you've got some interesting, besides Cash Patel, you want to start with him, or do you want to start with Trump and the rest of the media?
Well, let someone else do Trump suits and how he's threatened the media. But again, Cash Patel is suing The Atlantic for $250 million for besmirching his character. Now, I don't know how anybody could besmirch that character, but
And Cash Patel, of all people, is a public figure. So, I mean, the law protects journalists when dealing with public figures, and he's as public as it gets. And as you were explaining to us, and you and Eric, before we went on air, it's just an attempt to drain the resources of the media outlets that are being sued.
The Trump
Even if, I mean,
Bob, was there a particular item that he was going after Patel, or just in general they've been besmirching him?
I guess
was
there
there
were
something
specific
specific?
articles, Alan.
it was a
There was
specific article he didn't like.
The
Yeah.
Atlantic ran an article about the fact that his co-workers were totally beyond themselves about how drunk he always was. I think it was that Atlantic expose about his imbibing too. They had to send people to roust him out of bed or something to that effect. I read the article. You read the article, you go, oh, this is just another one of Trump's cabinet members.
Yeah.
This is par for the course. You got
Exactly.
Pete Hegseth, who's another walking drunk. So
yes, and the article about Patel's drinking, I mean, that's, you know, in terms of the Beltway and the White House press, that's practically common knowledge among the press. But Atlantic had the guts to print something, and now he's angry that it turned out in print. But he's a public figure. He would have to go a long way to win that in court, but in the meantime, he could drain their legal resources.
They are doing the same thing with Don Lemon and Ford. And what they've done is they brought them up on really weird charges. Trespassing in that church would have been a state crime. State didn't arrest them or charge them. So what they're doing is they're charging them with basically obstructing the freedom of religion of people in the church. And Lemon and the others are saying, we didn't obstruct anybody. We were covering a rally. And what the Trump administration is saying is the press has a right to print what they want, but they're not above the law and they don't have a right to participate in illegal action. So they're accusing Lemon and the others of participating in illegal action. This drains them financially, but it also puts terror into all reporters who are afraid if they pursue a story, they're going to be brought up on Trump charges.
This is
Trump charges.
The chilling effect that the Supreme Court, that the Constitution, when it protected freedom of the press, was trying to make sure it did not happen, because it knew that a free press is a way of checking people in power. And so that's why freedom of the press is enshrined in those first amendments to our Constitution. So basically the playbook is one, if I'm correct, if I'm interpreting this correctly, they're using a different law about you can't obstruct somebody's practice of religion to claim that the journalist covering the people that are protesting about the ICE supporting pastor, their demonstration against him in the church is obstructing the practice of the religion. But they're lumping the journalists covering that demonstration with the people who are demonstrating. So they're basically bogusly charging the journalists as demonstrators when they're actually journalists covering the demonstration. All
He
right.
simply walked in with his smartphone and recorded. That was his participation in that situation. And yes, they're using they're using the federal protection of religion against him, and he in no way did that. But that, he doesn't work for a big corporation right now. They
None
can
of the
drain his
journalists,
resources.
none of the journalists were violating that particular law. They were just doing their jobs. And so they're trying to twist the legal system in a way that the law that was passed was not designed to be used. And so that's part and parcel for the Justice Department that's under Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has used the Justice Department against all his perceived enemies, Don Lemon being one, Georgia Fort, whoever else that comes right out and declares that what Trump and ICE and what Christie Nome at the time and what what's the crazy czar who was having those people drag people, physically assault journalists in Minnesota when ICE was doing their
Oh,
crackdown.
the one that was fired, the
The
one
guy
that
with
wanted.
no, they just moved him aside. They didn't fire him.
Okay,
Yeah,
but he
yeah,
showed up in
yeah,
looking
yeah.
like
Now he's talking about maybe
G.I.
running for
Joe.
president, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
in his long coat, his Nazi long coat. Okay,
Yes.
his Nazi great coat.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this guy and that's Trump's Department of Justice at work. So yeah, the Supreme Court has basically let Trump and his people, his Department of Justice, get away with it. Brett Kavanaugh wrote some kind of opinion that said that ICE wasn't discriminating against brown people in California when they were saying, well, they look brown and they spoke with an accent. That's why we arrested them. Brett Kavanaugh said, oh, no, that was not any assumption of racism or anything. They were doing their due diligence. I forget what lie he said when he came down with that opinion. So that gets us back to the Supreme Court, Alan.
Yeah. Well, there were three big decisions that were just made by the court. This Monday was basically the last day for the court to release its decisions.
And we're taping on July 1st. Go ahead, Alan.
Right. One of the decisions was on the power of Trump to fire heads of congressionally created independent agencies. And by giving Trump that power, what he's doing is basically, you used the term before, checks and balances. You're undermining the system of checks and balances because there are no more checks on Trump. The other big case was the one that said that the mega wealthy can give unlimited amounts of money to campaigns so that you may have the right to vote, but they could spend billions. And then the third case is the birthright citizenship case, which people were at least breathed out of relief that the court upheld it, but the court decision was very shaky.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. First of all, let's parse the decision on how they actually voted on it. Do you have that particular wording on the 14th Amendment? Because this is the nub of the entire thing, because for years, the 14th Amendment was interpreted just exactly the way it was written. And of all the amendments to the Constitution, you can't get more plain language than the language that's in the Fourth Amendment that all of a sudden became disputed. But rather than just talk about parsing, we need to just read the actual phrase.
I have it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is
read it.
Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
Okay, plain, plain,
Yes,
plain.
simple English, simple direct English. I mean,
There are no subclauses, no no convoluted subtext. It's pretty straight across, like 4 lines, paragraph, whatever. And that's the paragraph that 6 of the justices against 3 said this cannot be written away by an executive order by the executive in the White House. Now, we
Well,
can
Eric, it was only 5 of the
5 for
Yeah,
real. Go ahead. Explain why that's because
Okay, apparently Chief Justice Roberts and Associate Justices Barrett, Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, they read what it said and they said, it says what it says. I mean, that's like a Dr. Zeus thing. You know, I mean what I mean. Kavanaugh voted with the majority, but Kavanaugh said, no, Trump didn't violate the 14th Amendment. He violated a 1940 federal law. That's scary because he left room to overturn birthright citizenship at a later time.
talking about the Congress being able to pass a law to overturn. Yeah, yes.
and just for by way of explanation, Trump's executive order taking away, supposedly trying to take away this birthright, was signed on his inauguration day.
Yeah.
That was the first thing he did in his second term. That's the first thing he tried to do, is sign this executive order, which has been on hold in the courts until this Supreme Court decision. But Eric, you had a particular take on how this is resonant with you. You mentioned McCarran, the McCarran Act, and I had to go look it up, but maybe you should just
McCarran-Walker
briefly.
Immigration Act was one of those racist anti-immigrant laws that were passed in 1952 to build quotas and keep black and brown people and people from Eastern Europe and all kinds of places out of the United States of America. Okay? It was so racist that Harry Truman vetoed it as un-American and unconstitutional. All right. President came down scathingly against it, but they passed it anyway. But for me, it's personal because basically, if you're born in the United States, and they clarified it to include its territories and possessions, okay, and subject to its jurisdiction, but yeah, I was born in a territory and possession of the United States. Panama Canal, okay, 1939. I was a natural born citizen based on the 14th Amendment, which was also amended to include the Panama Canal later, if I remember Alan told us. But because my mother, realizing what the McCarran-Walters Immigration Act meant in 1952, she basically had my sister and I naturalized on her citizenship papers. And so I swore an oath again to be a upright citizen of the United States of America. Same oath I took when I got commissioned, by the way. Okay.
So you took a double dip to.
I've taken that oath at least twice. All right.
To guarantee.
To guarantee I'm a citizen of this country. So now,
I made you explain that just because, I mean, for years as a tech person, I flew into Las Vegas, into McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, and I always wondered why the name was pulled. It's now Harry Reid, and I never got that until this explanation this week of who the hell McCarran was.
Racist SOB.
And they tried to take his statue out of the Capitol. They didn't win on that.
They didn't win on that one. Yeah.
But
Ketanji Brown had a phenomenal concurrence with John Roberts, who had a pretty strong line when he says, this cannot be erased by the pen of an executive order by the chief executive. He came right out to the Chief Justice, who I still don't trust, but on this issue, he actually came down on the right side. Well, Clarence Thomas decided he was going to reinterpret the revisionist version of the 14th Amendment. And so he claimed in his dissent paraphrasing, that was only applicable to the freed slaves. That's what the people were talking about. They were giving the freed slaves special rights in the United States because it was taken away by the Dred Scott decision, blah, whatever his reasoning was. Ketanji Brown lit into him with a consensus with the predominant written by, said, look, this is the rebirth of this democracy when they did this. And the language is plain and clear, and it's colorblind. It has nothing to do with who your parents were. I forget how I'm just paraphrasing her, but it's not the fact that you were born of somebody who was already a citizen here. It's basically what it says. All persons.
She
Go
accused
ahead,
him of
Don.
hypocrisy because in all his decisions knocking down affirmative action and DEI, he claimed this is a colorblind constitution. And here he suddenly sees race.
I mean, we've had it with Clarence on the show. I mean, we've the few times we get to mention his name, we've just kind of had it. And Alan, you can speak to this. It's dissents are common, but a direct
Yes.
comment on another justice like Ketanji just did against Clarence Thomas is rare. I mean, she laid into him, and rightly so.
Very much. Now, the two of the other negative votes, Gorsuch and Alito, also invented their own 14th Amendment. They argue that the 14th Amendment only covers people who are domiciled or who are permanent residents of the United States. And again, when we just read it, it doesn't say that. Now, how do we have 4 judges on the Supreme Court who either make believe their own law or they can't read?
And that's
It's very
because they're
frightening.
coming from ideological bent as opposed to legal bent.
Yes.
And they're interpreting it so that he can give that wacko in the White House everything he's trying to get. Okay? And so I'm glad they were called out on it. I am so glad that Ketanji Brown, Justice Brown, lit into so-called Justice Thomas the way she did, because all of a sudden he wants to throw his gorilla, I am the longest serving conservative on this court status around. And she's the youngest, newest member. And she looked at that and went, not on my watch. Boom. She lowered the boom on his rear end.
I think
Loud and clear.
maybe other people here might remember, maybe Ray, when Clarence Thomas went on these fishing trips with executive. I mean, he's been so bad for the Supreme Court since he replaced the legend Thurgood Marshall as the person of color, the black man on the Supreme Court. We bottomed out with him, and I'm glad Ketanji laid into him.
Oh boy.
Yep, the Sotomayor also signed on to Brown Jackson's dissent, and I think that's important to give her credit too. I like them both. I'm so glad they are on the court.
Yeah, and it wasn't a dissent, it was a reinforcement of the predominant ruling.
Yeah.
But they were laying into a diabolically vicious, stupid dissent.
Yeah. Sotomayor also wrote the dissent on the decision giving Trump the power to fire independent agency heads. And she wrote, this will be transformed in ways that those who created them never could have expected and actively sought to avoid, fundamentally recalibrating the balance of power in this country in the process. Neither the people nor the Congress nor the Constitution bestowed on him the power that the court gave him. In granting the president this unbridled authority, the court upends its precedent, misconstrues our history, and sheds any pretense of judicial modesty. So she also did not hesitate to come down very sharply. And that was sort of my ear.
And with that, we have about 2 minutes left.
Well, I'm wondering if we have enough time to go through the litany of how many bad decisions these people have made, or should we just do a quick recap of, yeah, real fast. Primary day was yesterday in a number of states, but the state of Colorado was very interesting. Real quick, like the battle about who the Democratic Party or what the Democratic Party is going to be got ramped up another notch because a young 29-year-old Democratic Socialist of America candidate, I don't have her name in front of me, won and defeated DeJette, the long-term congresswoman who served from the Denver area. And my take on that is she was younger, she was willing to fight hard, and she listed the three things, I believe: stop giving Israel unbridled support to do terrible things, fix the situation about people being afford to live in this country, and I forget what the third one was that most of these people are running on, but oh yeah, get rid of this Iran craziness that these crazy people are dealing with. And
they also want to tax the billionaires.
yeah, okay, that's part of affordability. Yeah. And basically the affordability issue, the youth issue, and the we're tired of the status quo issue and who's going to fight these crazies that are running this country into the ground right now, I think is what carried the day. Anything else, guys?
I mean, we're seeing the shift in the left, and yeah, they're part of it. And with that, we have about 30 seconds.
So yeah.
Yeah, Trump accuses them of being godless communists, but you made the point. This is Cold War crap, and the young people who are voting for them are looking at people whose ideas meld with theirs, and they don't care what Khrushchev did in 1957.
And with that, yes, we're about out of time. This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, V Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Alan Singer.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT and follow the 460 plus of us hashtag in social media.
And we'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe.